teach your students how to set up and pack away each activity because you want it to be a team effort, not just you doing it all the time. I often had the activities sort of ready to go when the kids came into the classroom, and maybe that's the way you work, but teach the kids how to pack it away properly so it's ready for the following day, and that will save you time later. It's kind of like going all the way back to number 1, limit marking, which means limit the organisation and things you have to do after reading groups have been run and completed.
Welcome to Rainbow Skies for New Teachers, where we're all about bite-sized tips and simple strategies for bright and busy new teachers.
If you're in your first few years of your career and want to make the rollercoaster ride of teaching more fun, streamlined and stress-free, you're in the right place.
We're Ashley and Alicia, the dynamic duo from Rainbow Sky Creations, and we're excited to be your teacher mentors on the go. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together, we're unstoppable. Let's get into today's episode.
Rainbow Sky Creations acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Dharawal and Whadjuk Noongar people. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
This episode is brought to you by our mini course, Transform Your Reading Groups. Hey, Alicia, I have got a question for you straight away today.
Please ask, Ashley.
Are you a bullet tip marker girl or a chisel tip when you're writing on the whiteboard?
Yeah, I am 100% bullet tip.
Oh, me too. You know, I did a podcast with this guy called Todd, and he was all for the chisel tip, and we put it up on Instagram as a poll, and more teachers went for the chisel over the bullet.
Do you think it's because you can do different depths with a chisel tip, like thin, thick? I don't know.
It just really shocks me because I feel like a chisel is just not neat.
Yeah, because it can be varying in width. I
Yeah.
think that's the right word. I feel like I've always just ordered bullet tip, and I feel the same about maybe as well. It replicates a pen for me, like a ballpoint pen. That's why I like a bullet tip.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'm glad we agree on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what else we're going to agree on? These activities that we're going to talk about today, because having activities ready for reading groups is going to be your best friend as a teacher, because we all know how hectic reading groups can be during the day, especially if you're doing it first thing in the morning and then you start your morning out a little bit hectic. So if you've got all your activities planned and ready to go and you've got activities that your students are enjoying, you're already going to set yourself off on the right foot.
Yeah, absolutely. And all these activities we're going to share today are like perfect for any form of literacy groups that you're doing if you do a literacy block at your school. We guarantee these are going to be very helpful to you. Now, we talk about the 5 golden rules for reading groups, Ash. Do you reckon we should start with that and share that with our amazing listeners?
For sure. So one of the things that our new teachers always say to us is like, how do you set up reading groups? I just don't understand, because I think a lot of teachers go into teaching when they've had a prac and things have already been set up for them. And I can understand that confusion because I kind of felt that way when I first started too. So that's why we put in these 5 golden rules for putting together activities for your reading groups. And if you follow these 5 rules, then you're totally on the right track. So number 1, and this is my favorite one. I know we shouldn't have favorites, Alicia, but this is my favorite.
That's why it's number 1.
That's right. That's why it's number 1. Try to limit activities that require marking.
Yeah, nobody wants to wrap up a literacy block, even a maths block, and having to mark a whole pile of work the kids have done whilst you've been working explicitly with a bunch of kids.
Yeah, especially when they haven't done it well.
Yes. Now, number 2, one very much to consider is the noise level and movement required to complete tasks. So think, if this is going to be a really noisy task, maybe you put it aside for another time as a whole class or a lesson warm up for another literacy session.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having too much noise when you're trying to work explicitly with a group sitting with you, and then the noise is just rising and rising and rising.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3rd golden rule. Activities can be used over and over because kids learn through repetition. So don't feel like you need to have a new set of activities every single week. Also, it takes time to explain all those activities, make sure that the kids understand them, have all the resources out. So if you're repeating activities, it's going to work for your efficiency.
Yes. And we all know that repeated activities as well can be slightly differentiated. So there's no wrong answer with that one. If they love playing that activity or doing that activity, just incorporate it in your literacy groups. Now, the 4th golden rule is don't underestimate simple activities. Remember, you're not 6 years old anymore. You're not 10 years old anymore. So to you, it could feel really simple. But for them, if it's a game or they're collaborating or they're communicating with their class buddies, they're probably going to really love it and want to play it continuously or interact in that activity. So keep it simple, friend.
Definitely. One thing that I didn't like setting as a teacher, I used to do it. I used to say that, especially my kindergarten or grade ones, sentences was an activity. And I always thought, oh God, it's so boring. My daughter now comes home and she has to write sentences for her homework. She bloody loves that. And I am shocked. She's in grade one. She loves writing the sentences. She wants to read me the sentences. They are not interesting sentences, but she really enjoys it. So keep the things simple.
In that case, it's them having that autonomy over sentence writing. You know what I mean? It's my story and you're like, but it's terrible, but we'll run with it.
Yeah. It's funny what comes into their brain too. It just can be any old random thing.
Very much so. And what's our fifth golden rule?
Number 5 is to teach your students how to set up and pack away each activity, because you want it to be a team effort, not just you doing it all the time. I often had the activities sort of ready to go when the kids came into the classroom. And maybe that's the way you work, but teach the kids how to pack it away properly so it's ready for the following day. And that will save you time later. It's kind of like going all the way back to number 1, limit marking, which means limit the organization and things you have to do after reading groups have been run and completed.
Yeah, ideally you want it to be that if you weren't there, the kids would know what to do with the setting up and packing up of those activities.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've got our golden rules covered, and you can find that on our blog, and I will make sure that we link that blog in the show notes. We wanted to talk about a list of suggested activities that follow those golden rules that you could use during your own reading group. So they're going to be activities that have little to no marking, activities that you can use over and over. They're simple and hopefully quiet, and they don't involve a lot of setting up and packing away. So it's going to be easier for you as a teacher. All of these activities that we're going to talk about today are actually activities that we provide within our mini course, Transform Your Reading Groups. Now, Transform Your Reading Groups isn't a course that teaches you how to teach kids to read. It is a course to help you set up your reading groups and have them running super smoothly so then you can concentrate on teaching kids to read. And I think we probably need to just touch on the idea of the science of reading before we dive into these activities.
Yes, that's very much a good idea. So the science of reading is all about how our brains actually learn to read. It's not an automatic process like learning how to speak. With the science of reading, it is a body of research that has been done for decades, and they found that reading is a skill that can be taught. And if we follow the suggestions of this research, they say staggeringly that 95% of children can learn to read by year 1, grade 1, whichever part of the globe you're in.
So all of those activities that we suggest today are going to be aligned with that research of the science of reading. And if you're thinking, I really want to know more about the science of reading, it's something I'm confused about, we have 2 podcast episodes that you need to go back and listen to with 2 experts. And we will make sure that we link those in the show notes as well if you want to go back and have a listen to those science of reading episodes that we recorded. Okay, so let's start off at the very entry stage, kindergarten, prep, foundation, pre-primary, whatever you call it. Let's talk about some activities that you could do for them.
Yes. A nice easy one and a very important one is the difference between uppercase and lowercase letters. So doing a alphabet match, you could have lowercase letters on pegs and they're having to clip them onto a slip that has the uppercase letters. So very simple activity, but as well working on your students' fine motor skill, which is really important for their development and handwriting when they move through into their schooling.
Yeah, I love activities that incorporate that fine motor. You could even use those pegs for the kids to go and clip things around, clip things in the classroom that start with that letter. So they might find a glue and clip the peg to the glue, or they might find an artwork and clip the peg to an artwork. Okay, the next one is making words, either heart words or CVC words using Play-Doh, magnetic letters, or letter cards. Now, here's a little tip if you're using magnetic letters. Sometimes it's hard for them to sort of slip all around. You might want to use a whiteboard, a mini whiteboard, or you can get a ruler and on the back of the ruler, put a bit of magnetic tape. You can just pick that up from Kmart. And that way, the magnetic letters sit on it perfectly.
That is so clever. You could just use that as well if you've got magnetic numbers too. So
definitely.
Love that one.
Create little number lines out of your magnetic numbers.
Now, I feel like the next suggestion we're going to give is underrated and can actually work right up until year 6. And it's rainbow writing words. And we were talking about how kids love sentence writing. Like you could even add an extra element by getting them to write each word in different colors. Kids get so excited when they're like, what do you mean? I can use anything. I don't have to use a lead pencil. This is amazing. I can use pink and textures and markers. Get out the colored pens and pencils and get your students practicing their writing. You could even pair this up with your CVC words and your heart words, and them just doing it with a colored pencil is going to be so exciting for them. And even those different colors can help them really see where the word starts and where the word ends. So give it a try, even in your middle, upper primary. They'll love it.
Yeah, they will. You could have special pens. I bought some pens for my kids the other day from Smiggle, and they're glitter pens. They're actually textures with glitter in them. They're really cool. You could have special ones that you're going to use. I've even seen teachers do something like this where they've allowed the kids to write using whiteboard markers, different colored whiteboard markers, just straight on the desk. And that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, the novelty of it is fun. So there you go. 3 activities you could try in your kinder class.
Okay, so let's move on to grade 1 and grade 2. And we're going to start off with a really important one, and that is word mapping. So focusing on either heart words, if you're following the science of reading, or even words with a particular sound or grapheme that you're working on. And this way, the students have to read the word, they've got to tap out the word and count the number of graphemes, and then write out the word, and then practice writing it again. I actually used this mapping with one of my children at home, and it really helped her. And I know that we spoke to Malia in a previous episode of the podcast when we were talking about the science of reading and how powerful word mapping can be.
I love word mapping, and I think that's such an important skill we need to be incorporating into all our literacy groups. And it was always one I used in my year 3 and year 4 class. Now, the next activity you could do is regarding syllables, like a really important skill that we need students to be able to, with their phonemic awareness of hearing and manipulating sounds. So if we're doing syllables, we've created for you, if you've got our Transform Your Reading Groups course, where you've got pegs with different numbers on them and they're clipping it around different pictures and images that reflect how many syllables they have, such as octopus. So when you're teaching the younger grades with syllables, really add those hand actions. You could do it where they're touching like their head, shoulders, hips, or you could have it where they're touching like their shoulders down their arms, like shoulder, elbow, hand.
The Hive is an all-in-one online hub for your classroom, a launch pad with everything you need all in one place. Think of it as your digital teaching partner.
The Hive was created by former teacher and assistant principal Tam, aka Mrs. Learning Bee, and her software developer husband Jez. Their vision is simple: to find new and innovative ways to make teachers' lives easier while also making learning fun and engaging for students.
Some of the features that they've pioneered are the online visual timetable and digital teacher planner, the first ever planner for teachers and students, an innovative phonics app, including their famous word builder and Beetle game. That's my favorite. Buzzboard, their complete digital whiteboard, an ever-growing bank of digital learning tools and classroom management tools, which take customization to the next level. And lastly, the unique classroom dashboard that just brings everything together.
That dashboard is a game changer. Tam and Jez have built the Hive in collaboration with thousands of teachers from around the world, actioning their feedback to build updates and features that are needed in classrooms.
And the best part, they are only just getting started. There's no shortage of ideas in their brains. The Hive is only going to get bigger and better.
Teachers, it's time to level up your classroom. Try it out for yourself today with a 7-day free trial. Head to hive.mrslearningbee.com.
As well, another one is when they drop their mouth, they put a little hand under their jaw, and when they say octopus, they would hear those 3 syllables. And Ashley has created another little cute activity here where you just you get the kids to do it in the start of the lesson. Each of you go grab one object in the classroom and try and make it a different object, or you've already pre-made a bunch of objects. And part of that group, the students are actually holding that object, looking at it, saying it, working out the syllables and sorting it into different little boxes. 1 syllable, 2 syllables, 3 syllables and more.
Yeah, that's a fun little activity. You could even just get your lost property box and put it down there. Just add a few extra items to it, and there you go. You got yourself a syllable sort.
Glue lid, glue lid, glue lid.
Yeah. Okay. The last activity that we're going to suggest for grades 1 and 2 is getting them to practice their contractions. So using building blocks, they can have a word that's shortened like didn't, and then they need to find the 2 words that combine together to make didn't. So did not, isn't, is not. Now, if you want a visual of that, we've got it on the blog. We love using building blocks as a different way to encourage learning, and it's really good for those hands-on learners as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
We were
Go on.
saying earlier that this activity with the contractions are going to be good for grades 3 and 4 as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of grade 3 and 4, here are some activities you could incorporate into your reading groups or literacy rotations. It's probably one of my favorite ones that I was starting to use more before I had my first little bubba is word of the day. So we have a bunch of activities called word of the day. You pick a word, and it's probably best that students pick a word that is either part of your vocabulary that you're using perhaps on a topic, or if they're doing spelling words, one of those words, and they actually pull apart that word. They look at how many vowels and consonants it has. What's the syllables? What is the definition of this word? What is it part of speech? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adverb, adjective? And then we also can be looking at what are some synonyms or antonyms for that word. So it's really a sheet that has so much of word manipulation in it, and getting the students to really look and unpack that word, segment that word. Like, what are the phonemes? So word of the day is a great one, and it's definitely one of those activities that you could use each term.
Definitely. You could even laminate or put it in a write and wipe sleeve, and the kids can use a whiteboard marker so you don't have to actually photocopy the sheet. And it's also a really good one to make differentiation super easy, because kids can be working on different words.
That's right.
Okay. Our next activity is segmenting words. Now, this is an activity that I know my grade 4s hated doing when I was in the classroom. And the reason that they hated it is because we used to ask them to do it straight in their notebook. So they would segment the words and then put like a little dash, a little slash in between each grapheme. And it was messy. They felt it was boring. So Alicia actually came up with this template where she's got little boxes, and the kids write the word and then they segment it out inside the boxes. And it's just a little bit more fun. And the reason being is that it takes away that difficulty of the slashes. It takes away that messiness, and it's just super clear for the kids to see. Even as a teacher, I can look at Alicia's example on our blog and be like, great, she's got that skill. We can move on to something a little bit more difficult or work on something else. So that is a really good one. And it is an important skill for kids, especially as they're using more difficult words and working on more difficult sound combinations.
Yes. It's one that I would be using most weeks, just as part of our general literacy blocks.
Yeah, me too.
Now, the other activity we've got adds a bit of fun into something that's a bit boring. Hello, sentence writing. I like this activity because we've created for you word wheels, and you can just do the same at home. So we've literally got a circle that's been segmented into 8 parts. Then we've stuck on a template on top with a little wedge cut out so they can spin it around and choose a word, a bit like a spinning wheel, but a tactile version. So you can have we've got like an adjective spinning wheel, a verb spinning wheel, a conjunction spinning wheel. We can do the same with adverbs and verbs. And when they're moving into year 3 and 4, we want them to become more sophisticated writers. We want them to be able to elaborate more. We want them to be able to write engaging sentences that are short sentences, that are compound sentences made up of 2 sentences, that are longer descriptive sentences. So with this, you can actually also add that element of going, I want you to be thinking of what's a really great sentence starter that you could use for your upcoming narrative that we're writing. Or we've been doing lots of work on researching different animals, cities, towns, weather types. I want you to write some sentences based on that. And then you use the spinning wheel as like a provocation for the kind of get them inspired and be like, oh, I've got this word, this verb, continue, or I've got this adjective, cheeky. How can I incorporate this into my writing? So you get them to do that, whether it's on a whiteboard or in their writing book. It's just a really great way to get them writing more. And rather than you sit down and mark it, have them buddy up with a peer and do some peer marking, and they read each other's sentences. They're giving each other feedback. They're like, wow, I really like how you did this, or I might try and do this. And hey, it looks like you've missed using a comma. So it just gives them that sense of autonomy and ability to teach others, because we know that when you are teaching a skill, I can't remember off the top of my head the statistics, but I think it's something like 40 to 60% more likely to remember that information because you have taught it to somebody else. So there is power behind peer mentoring.
Yeah, there sure is. All right, so let's talk about the older grades, which I know that some teachers find this a little bit more difficult, but rotational activities or literacy groups don't give it away in the older grades. It still allows you to work explicitly with a small group, and those kids still need it. And it also gives the other kids chances to really work on different literacy skills that you're working on. So there's loads of different activities that you can do. One of the activities that we love is getting kids to listen to podcasts. Kids love podcasts, especially that older age. They love up to the minute media like podcasts. So getting them to listen to podcasts, and then they can go and summarize them or explain it to a friend, or you might even get them to work on creating their own podcast episode to record with friends. It really isn't that tricky to record a podcast. You can do it using lots of different mediums if you've got different technology in the classroom. Some examples of podcasts that you can use are Imagine This, which is all about science questions, puzzling science questions. The Fact Detectives, which is about two kids that are on a mission to find out cool facts about everything. And one that we love is Fierce Girls, which are stories about extraordinary Aussie women.
Yes. Check out ABC Kids. They have some really great podcasts, like even Little Yarns for the younger ones. But don't underestimate the power of those audiobooks. It's a skill that we need students be able to use and become really good at, because, gosh, you're probably listening to this podcast right now using that skill, and you're going to have students who are going to need it more and more as they go through life. Now, Another activity I do for the upper grades is, and I think it's going to touch on that discussion of, they don't need to start a task and finish a task in that block that you're doing. Okay, so they can keep, and the same goes especially as well for your middle primary, they can start something and do it over a 2-week period. Setting them like a mini project. We've put together a bunch of flip books that we've created, like on Roald Dahl, Harmony Day, Anzac Day, Growth Mindset. And you could even just incorporate whatever your students are learning in science or HASS or history, whatever it might be, geography. There are so many skills they're going to be incorporating with having to read the information, having to understand the information, having to summarize the information, how to rewrite it in their own terminology. Starting a little mini project for those upper grades is, they're going to really enjoy it because they're going to have some sense of ownership over it and probably pick a topic that they're really interested in. You've probably got in the back of your cupboard there, maybe even some, I can't remember, those big comprehension cards where it's like on a topic and you lift it up and there's information to read on the front, and on the back it's got comprehension questions, but then it's also got like little research questions or have you thought, and it's extending their learning. If you've got anything like that in your classroom that's just collecting dust, pull it out, have a look at it. Your kids are probably going to like doing it, even if you just try it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Get them to give you feedback. If they're doing an activity and they go, oh, miss, I don't like it. We don't like this at all. Collectively, they really don't like it, then great. You know that that's not really one that you should put on the high rotation list. But if you're finding something that they are really interested in, then that is a really good start to add to that list of weekly activities that you have, for sure.
Yeah.
Were they comprehension in a box?
Yeah, or like even like creative thinking, something
I feel like
that.
there's been loads of them over the years. I know Rigby created a whole heap of things. I feel like I definitely had a resource called Comprehension in a Box. Very creative name.
You know what you were getting when you purchased that.
Yes, you sure did. Okay, our final activity for grades 5 and 6 is don't shy away from those hands-on activities where the kids are looking and reading and sorting. So one example is a figurative language sort. So they've got different similes, metaphors, idioms on cards. They've got to read them and they've got to sort them out. You can do this with loads of different skills, but I think sometimes as teachers, we think our big kids need to be sitting and just writing pages and pages, but they still really benefit from these games and activities to help them with their writing later on.
Yeah, especially if you are guilty of writing on Post-it notes and randomly sticking them on places of your desk. you're that kid in year 6 who needed that hands-on lesson.
That's me. I'm that kid.
Yeah. So don't make it so boring that they're not going to want to actually be engaged in your literacy rotations, and add in that element of hands-on components, or give it a go. That's all we suggest. Don't stop doing it just because you're teaching upper primary.
Yeah. You're also with upper primary, we spoke about word mapping. You could do that for all age groups. You can have different word maps depending on the age. So it can increase in difficulty, but that is also really, really important, especially as you're going on and they're learning about different words and where words come from. We're really doing a deep dive into language, and that is word mapping can really help with that. So before we wrap up, let's just remind everyone of our 5 golden rules of reading groups. Take it away.
The 5 golden rules are: try to limit activities that require marking. Number 2, consider the noise level and movement required to complete tasks. Number 3, activities can be used over and over because kids learn through repetition. Number 4, don't underestimate simple activities. And number 5, teach your students how to set up and pack away each activity. There you have it.
So simple, so straight down the line. Often the simplest things are the best as teachers. Now, if you want more help with your reading groups, if you're thinking your reading groups aren't running as smoothly as they should, you need to check out Transform Your Reading Groups. But also, if you're a new teacher, we are focusing on reading groups next month inside Transform Your First Years. We're going to give you more activities. We're going to do some masterclasses. We're going to chat about different strategies. We're here to help you and guide you so you can have those reading groups really running like clockwork.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always on the top of my professional development as a teacher was reading groups, literacy. Am I doing it right? So we've created this course to really simplify it for you and go, if you don't have a formula for running reading groups in your classroom, here, take ours. It works. Give it a go.
Definitely. And Alicia and I, we're 2 very different teachers. Alicia's a type B, I'm a type A, and this strategy that we've put together is the way that both of us work. So it works for both of our styles of teaching. And that's why we know it's foolproof.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to learn more about Transform Your Reading Groups, we have a course for the early years and the primary years. Check out the show notes. And if you're a new teacher and you want someone there to hold your hand and be your greatest cheerleader, we've also linked in information about Transform Your First Years, our membership for new teachers.
Awesome. We will see you on the inside, everybody.
You shall.
And we'll also see you next week for another episode of Rainbow Skies for New Teachers. There are rainbows ahead, my friend.
And together we're unstoppable.